If you sit quietly in a room at night, you can sometimes hear the faint, continuous hum of the world. It is easy to mistake this sound for traffic, or the vibration of plumbing deep in the walls, or perhaps just the static of your own mind trying to fill the silence. But it is actually something else. It is the sound of an immense, invisible ledger being updated in real time. Every breath we take, every keystroke we make, and every hour of sleep we lose is being calculated, weighted, and balanced against a debt we did not realize we inherited. For a long time, we believed that money was a representation of past work. You labored, you earned a token, and you exchanged that token for something of equal value. It was a backward-looking system, anchored in things that had already happened. The gold in the vault, the grain in the silo, the steel in the yard. But if you look closely at the architecture of modern power, you begin to notice that the anchor has been quietly cut. The vaults are no longer full of metal, and the silos are empty of grain. Instead, they are filled with promises. We have entered the era of the sovereign ledger. It is a quiet, bloodless transition that has occurred without a single shot being fired or a single constitution being rewritten. Governments around the world have realized that they can no longer fund their existence by taxing the present. The present is too small, too fragile, and too exhausted. To survive, the state must borrow from the only territory left unconquered. It must borrow from the future. We used to think of a nation as a geographical territory populated by a culture. We saw it as a place defined by its borders, its history, and its shared memory. But to the international financial system, a nation is something else entirely. It is a balance sheet. It is a cash flow statement. And like any corporation under pressure, when the cash flow dries up, the management must look for new assets to leverage. This is where the sovereign ledger comes in, rewriting the contract between the citizen and the state. Think about what a sovereign bond actually is. It is not just a financial instrument. It is a legal claim on the tax revenue of citizens who have not yet been born. It is a mortgage on the labor of children who are currently asleep in their cribs. When a nation issues debt, it is declaring that the tomorrow of its population belongs to the creditors of today. This is the first layer of re-collateralization. We have turned our descendants into financial guarantees. But the ledger has grown hungry. As the crises of the 21st century multiply, from climate instability to demographic collapse, the old promises are no longer enough to satisfy the markets. The debt has grown so vast that it can never be paid back, and everyone involved in the game knows this. The goal is no longer to settle the account. The goal is simply to keep the ledger open. To do this, nations must find new things to pledge as collateral. And so, they have begun to look inward. They are looking at the very fabric of our reality, searching for assets that have not yet been financialized. They are looking at the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the biological code that makes us human. We see this in the sudden rise of natural asset companies and the creation of markets for ecosystem services. A forest is no longer just a collection of trees and soil. On the sovereign ledger, that forest is reframed as a carbon sequestration machine, a measurable unit of climate mitigation that can be packaged, rated by an agency, and traded on an exchange. The rain that falls on a mountain is no longer a natural phenomenon. It is a hydrologic yield, collateralized to back a new series of green bonds. By turning the basic life support systems of the planet into financial assets, nations are able to borrow more money today by promising that they will manage, or perhaps ration, these resources tomorrow. This is a subtle, almost beautiful trick of language and mathematics. It is framed as conservation, as a way to save the world by giving it a price tag. But beneath the rhetoric of sustainability lies a darker truth. If the forest is collateral for a nation's debt, then who actually owns the forest? If a country defaults on its obligations, does the clean air produced by that forest still belong to its people, or does it belong to the sovereign ledger? The realization begins to take shape slowly. It is not just that we are paying for the past with our future. It is that the future itself is being actively redesigned to ensure that the debt can always be serviced. Think of the data we produce. Every movement of your phone, every search query, every heartbeat recorded by a wearable device is a data point. For years, we thought this data was being collected just to sell us advertisements. But that is a surface-level understanding. In reality, this data is the raw material for predictive models that determine our future economic output. It allows the state to project, with mathematical precision, exactly how much we will consume, how long we will work, and when we will die. This predictable human behavior is the ultimate collateral. By digitizing our lives, we have allowed the state to turn our future attention, our future health, and our future choices into tradable securities. And here is the reframing that makes the stomach turn. We have always assumed that the state is trying to solve the crises we face. We expect our leaders to solve climate change, to cure diseases, and to stabilize the economy. But on the sovereign ledger, crisis is not a problem to be solved. Crisis is the volatility that makes the collateral valuable. Without the threat of climate disaster, green bonds lose their premium. Without the fear of disease, biological data loses its value. Without economic instability, the state cannot justify the emergency measures required to claim ownership over new domains of our lives. The ledger does not want resolution. It wants a permanent state of managed emergency. It needs the threat of the future to be terrifying, because only a terrifying future can justify the high cost of the credit we are using to survive the present. We are not just living through an economic cycle. We are living inside a giant, self-sustaining machine that converts our potential into survival for an aging system. The sovereign ledger is a machine that runs on time. Your time. It slices and dices our years into risk profiles, interest rates, and debt-to-gross domestic product ratios, ensuring that we remain productive enough to service the interest, but never free enough to demand the principal back. Let us return to the quiet room. Outside, the street lamps are shining, casting long, familiar shadows on the pavement. The world looks exactly as it did yesterday. The grocery store shelves are full, the trains are running on schedule, and the banking apps on our phones show reassuring numbers. It all feels so incredibly stable, so normal. But now you know that under this thin veneer of stability, every element of your life has been quietly pawned to keep the lights on for another day. Your future labor, your children's potential, the very air you will breathe tomorrow, have already been written into the ledger, signed away by people you will never meet, to pay for things you did not buy. You are no longer just a person living your life. You are a unit of collateral walking through a world that has already been spent. As you prepare to sleep, and the quiet hum of the world returns to fill the room, you are left with one final, cold thought. If your tomorrow has already been sold to pay for your today, then whose life are you actually living?